Oh, boy. Let's do it live on a First Friday Miracle Edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I'm merely Beau. He's the great Z. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing very well. First Friday, 1 day away from the Browns' 75th anniversary special edition of Browns Live tomorrow. Very exciting. Going to be fun from the Hall of Fame. And, you know, when you reflect on things like that and 75 years and all of that, one thing, though, that is at the forefront of my mind today, based on videos that are going around the internet, is I'm glad that I've never had a wall fall on me while I was broadcasting. Because I don't know if you've seen the video of that guy.
One of my hardest scenes.
How is he alive? How's he okay? How's he okay?
Keep talking about your stupid light.
It's a crazy.
Watch out, buddy.
The light is going to save me from that.
Keep talking about that light.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if there's been a poll done in Australia where we're huge in Australia. They're unanimous. They want the light. Gibbe got word after he was trying to throw Rush under the bus, saying that this was Rush's fault that there was no light for budgetary reasons. Well,
Russia, like the country?
No, Rush, Greg Rush, like the.
Greg Rush.
Yeah, our guy. Rush.
Like
this isn't Russia, Danny.
Somehow Putin's building billion-dollar beach houses, and he's responsible for no light.
Yeah. So anyway,
very good.
Rush.
Rush.
Saying that Rush
go ahead.
and budgetary things. So it was made known to me via Rush himself that this had been brought to his attention, that he assured me that nay, that was not the issue, and so I had passed that on to Gibbe and says, if this were not COVID times, Rush, in fact, is going to come in the studio on air and declare this and basically pull the rug out from under Gibbe. But obviously, we can't have anybody else in the studio with me, which is sad because I'd love for you to be here, actually for me to be there and you to be physically here where I am now. And so
back in the old days.
I told, because I was going to do it as a surprise for Gibbe and like an ambush, like a Bachelor-style ambush. And instead, I realized we couldn't do it, so I just told Gibbe what happened. Gibbe, taking matters into his own hands today.
Yeah.
Goes to the copier room, lays in wait like a scene out of Last of the Mohicans when Magua was ready to ambush Gray Hair, and then comes out of the copier room full force as he knows Rush was there. He had like a mirror at the end of like a long pencil, and was holding it out so you could see.
Oh, my gosh, diabolical.
And literally steamrolls him, flattens him practically into the ground. I think that was a message. I think that was a message.
Wow. Message sent. And as we've illustrated many times on the show, what can he have to say? There's nothing to say after that.
It's great. We need a Gibbe cam. If you won't get me a light, at least get me you on camera.
Yeah, we need that. And I think the other thing we have to reiterate to the audience. We need to reiterate to the audience that Gibbe built this entire set and all of the engineering around it. All by himself,
no
without
outside
any
input.
sort of help, no outside input. He built it all himself.
Yes, this is his design.
And so it's all his design. This was exactly the way he wanted it as he was building his ideal studio for us. And so that is the reason that this falls at his feet as often as it does, and accurately so, as it would. So,
unbelievable.
There's that.
Yes. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But anyway, a fun start to the day. That's a great way to start a first Friday.
So you got your Browns Live 75th tomorrow. We're a week away from free agency. And as we get into the OBM hot topics, Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider of your Cleveland Browns, of all the X's and O's for your office, you can call 216-485-2000. Visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. If somebody can explain to me cap space and the cap, I'd love it. Because to me, I kind of think of it the way that, like, I don't understand how radio works. I know that I talk into a mic and somehow it goes out to all of you. I don't understand it, though. I don't understand how television works through airwave sound. I don't get it. I just do it. I turn it on. It works. It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. That's like the cloud is another example of this. I have no idea how the cloud works. Makes no sense to me. Like, I got all this storage space. It's in the cloud. Yeah. I pay for more of it so I can keep pictures from 7 years ago of my kids. So I pay for more cloud space. But I don't know where it is and what the physical property of it is. That's how I feel about the NFL salary cap. We're told every year, the cap, they're in cap prison, they're in cap jail, they can't do anything. Last year, the Kansas City Chiefs were in cap jail, and they handed out $600 million in contracts.
Totally.
And we're fine.
Totally.
So it's really, from what I can understand, it's really, does your owner have enough money that he can put it in escrow and pay guaranteed money, in which case you get around the cap that way? And then I find out today, Schefter tweeting out this morning, they kind of set this out, that the salary cap is 182.5, which is about $16 million less than last year when it was 198. But we will operate with $25 million in cap space because we're carrying money over.
Carrying forward, yep.
Now the Steelers don't have a problem with cap money. I don't understand it. I know that we now have the most, according to the figures that I've seen, that somehow we now have the most cap space. Do you have a better handle on it, private school boy?
So carrying the money forward, so the cap line is set at the baseline, and then what you carry forward adds to that. So if you we'll just use big numbers, right? 182.5. So let's say you carried forward $27.5 million. Your cap is 210. So everybody doesn't have the same cap because of that fact. And then there are teams that have dead money. Dead money is the opposite of carrying money forward. Dead money, if you had a 182.5 and you're carrying 2.5 in dead money, well, that means your cap's really only 180. So that's kind of that's where it is. That's where you're able to do some manipulation. And then really what the cap, economics or caponomics are, it's all about cash. So you can say, all right, I'm going to lower your cap hit this year by paying you a bonus now and, restructuring your deal. And so you're messing with what counts in terms of, from accounting standpoints, what counts for this year. I thought the Steelers are now in great shape, you're saying?
Well, I saw Caboli this morning saying that they could easily get to $15 million under the cap with a couple of moves, and they could easily get there.
So right, and that means, but you have to remember.
I just don't understand it. It seems like the same thing about the Saints. It was like, oh, they're in cap jail, but are they? And I remember this with the Chiefs last year. Everyone's going, gosh, how are they going to keep all these guys? Then they extended all three of those guys for $600 million, and they're fine. They have no cap problems.
So here's what, and I'm going to pull up. This is from Over the Cap, and I'm guessing that they have updated it now that this information is available with the 182.5. The Jags and the Jets I knew were at the top. So the Jags and the Jets they've got it now. Effective cap space for the Browns is $25 million. The Jags are at 73, the Jets 70, Patriots 70. That's kind of where everybody was. The Saints are 31 over the cap as of right now. They are carrying 12 in dead money, and they're over. Their cap spending is over by 23. So they're at 35 over, basically 30 over right now. The Eagles have $40 million in dead money this year. $40 million.
Well, Wentz is 33 of it.
Wentz?
Yeah,
huge. So there are teams. You said the Steelers. The Steelers right now are 5 under the cap. So I think what he's saying, let me pull up. I'll tell you exactly what he's saying. So what he means is $15 million. And remember, you need to be about, for most teams, if you have a normal allotment of draft picks, you need $7 million in your draft picks, at least. If you're earlier in the draft, it's higher.
I guess the point of all of this that I am having a hard time with is the cap is there, but it's easily circumvented.
Right. So what he's saying is, look, we decide, okay, we're gonna move on from Joe Hayden. That saves us $7 million under the cap right now. But that would have dead money. So I don't see them. That doesn't seem to be one that would make a lot of sense in terms of a type of a move they want to make. Eric Ebron, though, they could have $2.5 million dead, save $6 million. So, get Ebron. Now you're at 11. Cut Eric Ebron. Those are the kind of things that they're going to look to do and move on from people and just kind of pick up here or there. Mason Rudolph, for example, if they were to get rid of Mason Rudolph, that saves them $1 million. Do you think Dwayne Haskins is a better gamble at this point than Mason Rudolph? Maybe you do. Jalen Samuels, the running back, that saves them $1 million. So there are a lot of things that they're able to do to save and get to about 15. That's still not a ton of money. Like right now, their cap space with 5, that doesn't cover the draft.
Yeah. It's just if you hear so much about the cap,
sure,
and there's a lot of ways around it.
Yes,
so that's a big thing. I think the big headlines from yesterday are the big winners are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They put a tag on Godwin, and then they get Levante David signed at a bargain deal of 2 years, $25 million. You saw the stat on David of his combination of tackles, interceptions, and sacks at this point in his career. The only other linebacker to do it was Ray Lewis.
He's a total stud.
He might be one. Yeah, but he might be one of those guys that because he always played on a bad team, nobody noticed him.
Yep.
And he might just be on the way to being a Hall of Famer, and it may have taken Tom Brady to make everybody see it.
Levante David's been a stud for a long time. But, again, you're on a franchise that isn't winning a ton. You're not going to get that kind of recognition. For them, for example, I think they're going to make moves. Ryan Jensen, they could save $10 million with Ryan Jensen, 6.5 with Cameron Brate, 6 with O.J. Howard, 5.5 with William Golston. That's a team that's going to, I think, be able to shed a lot of cap at the top right there to try to get themselves in a position to be able to, try to maybe make an aggressive offer to keep a Shaq Barrett in town now that you got Godwin coming back.
Absolutely. The Bengals tagged no one.
Nobody. And they have $42 million in cap
Nobody.
space. And Carl Lawson, and he who shall not be named, guns for hire. Did you see that? I know.
Jeez, what am I hard at seeing?
This is where I need.
I
guess you know what could have saved that. Mid, on, off, cough.
Yep.
I could have gone straight to the cough button mid, and it wouldn't have come out. But I don't have that. I don't have that luxury.
No, it wouldn't have worked like that.
Yeah,
I don't think you know how technology works.
Oh, really?
So
Why don't you put it in here?
Yes.
Put it in here and show me.
No, not happening.
That's assault, brother. Greg Rush.
That wall's going to get loosened up.
Conveying with lawyers. That's what I've heard. Convening with lawyers.
Wall's getting loosened up. Amazing. All of a sudden, the studio wall falls on Segura.
Could you imagine? I mean, that video is nuts.
The first time you went to hit the button.
Yeah.
The first time you go to hit the button for the light on. Boom.
Boom. Yeah. It's rigged. The mini explosives at the bottom of the wall. Just bam. Bam.
I would say that the force of that was shocking, that guy wasn't seriously hurt.
I don't understand it.
Because it is a big hit. It's a big hit. Yeah.
And they're saying Tranquilo in the background. They're trying to calm it all down. Yeah, no. No.
There's no call to that.
Rough.
Out.
By the way,
great job out of the Cleveland State Vikings last night. That's a great job. I watched that game. That was fun. They were in control from start to finish. What an incredible turnaround there in 2 years to go from where the program is to where it is now. Now you're headed to the tournament for the first time since 2009. That is a very good job out of them. It's a good job out of Gibbe when you get Mike Florio, and he will join us coming up next. Off and running here on a First Friday Miracle edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Your Social Security benefits have been denied. Call the disability lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. With that, we head out on the Fifth Third Money Line for a visit with our old buddy Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. Mike, it's fun season now, isn't it? We've got cap numbers, we've got franchise tags, we've got people tagged, people not tagged. And in terms of that latter category, guys not tagged, certainly from our perspective here, and not that we would necessarily be in the business with these players, but Galladay and Henry were surprising. And then there's a certain defensive end down in Cincinnati that is kind of the apple of our eye, Mike, that we don't really want to say his name out loud because we think it would be a good fit. But I was a little surprised that Cincinnati didn't sign the he who shall not be named. What were some of yours that jumped out to you yesterday and today?
Is this superstition-based or is it potential tampering-based?
No.
You're allowed to talk about it, even if you're Cleveland Browns Daily. As long as it's not Andrew Berry or Kevin Stefanski, it's okay to talk about it.
We don't want to jinx it.
We do not have that type of authority.
No.
It's
authority.
It's all superstitious.
Yeah.
Yep.
A general comment about the franchise tag, because even though it's been around 25 years, for some reason there's this misconception that it's a good thing for a player because he makes a lot of money for 1 year. It's a bad thing for a player to be franchise tagged because that limits his opportunity to hit the market and maximize his earnings, maximize his guaranteed money over multiple years, and it delays at least by a year, sometimes by 2 years, the opportunity to get that kind of contract. So it's never a good thing for the player. It's better to not be tagged than to be tagged. And the guys who aren't tagged, they're in play now, whether it's Galladay, whether it's Hunter Henry, whether it's the pass rusher who shall not be named. And, speaking of pass rushers, when you look at the list of guys who are due to become free agents next Wednesday afternoon at 4 Eastern, there are a lot of pass rushers. And when you consider how important the position has become in the NFL, it's almost stunning that many guys are available. So the question becomes, and I think this is one of the reasons why Shaq Barrett wasn't franchise tagged by the Buccaneers, for what the top-end guys want, dollar for dollar, you can probably get better value. You could maybe get 2 or 3 guys, maybe even more than that, at the position instead of going all in for one of the guys who will get a huge payday right out of the gates.
When you look at the situation coming in at 182.5, and we're seeing it as we're on the air right now, Quentin Jefferson, John Brown released by the Bills. Is it that middle class of veteran that you think is going to be faced with the following? Restructure, and maybe you can stay. If not, you're going to be on the streets.
Yeah, the middle class is definitely the group of veteran players who are going to be crushed by this. The stars are always going to get their money. The rookies, the guys early in their contracts, their money is dictated by the wage scale, which is very favorable to the teams, and it's always good to load up with guys like that who don't take up a lot of cap space. The guys in between are going to get crunched. Someone told me several weeks back when we all started to focus on the reality that the cap was indeed going to dramatically drop, and teams have been doing their planning year in and year out premised on the cap going up. That, for example, a guy like Ndamukong Suh who got $8 million last year. This year, same guy, same level of experience, same skill set, going to get $3 million. That's how significant it's going to be. I mean, you're talking about $15.7 million of a drop from last year at a time when they expected maybe a $10 million bump. So you're talking about a $25 million difference per team of where we thought it was going to be going into last year, pre-pandemic, and where it is going to be. So it really is going to screw those guys in the middle. And it's going to have, I think, a delayed reaction as well, because the teams out there that have guys that they intend to keep, once they see who's available and how much you can get them for on maybe a one-year deal, you may revisit some of the veterans who are in that middle class that you were happy with, and you may think, you know what, I could be a lot happier with this other guy because dollar for dollar, he brings us greater value.
And from kind of that thought process, and we keep hearing one-year deal. This is going to be the offseason of the one-year deal. Makes a lot of sense, obviously, for the players and the teams because the cap's going to be going up in the following season. Do you think we're going to see, and I don't want to say it's NBA because only 5 guys are on the field in the NBA, but you're going to see a lot of guys say, you know what, this is the 1 year where I'm not going to be able to get my true market value. I want to go chase a ring, and you might see a ton of one-year deals in terms of, ring chasing, knowing that, hey, if I do win the ring, we get that exposure, I'm going to have a chance to really get paid in 2022.
Absolutely, and I think the teams to watch are the teams that are on the north side of the contender dividing line. You've got the non-contenders, you've got the contenders, and the contenders are going to be in position to attract the guys who are willing to do one-year deals. I think that some of the quarterback consternation that we saw in the aftermath of the Super Bowl, sparked by Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay, receiving his kind of deference, having influence over who's on the team, who's not on the team. Other quarterbacks want that power, especially this year, because when you look at the best of the best teams, there could be, in theory, super teams this year who end up loading up with these short-term deals. It kind of reminds me of what, and, it rarely works this way that you load up a team of great players and it actually delivers a championship. But I remember the 94 49ers. It just felt like they were signing one guy after another, and it helped them put together a Super Bowl championship team that ended the Cowboys' consecutive years of championships. I feel like there's going to be multiple teams that when they look at their final roster and it's time to go play the games, we're going to be saying, wow, watch out for this team. And the teams that already have proven that they're contenders, they're the ones who are going to have the leg up in getting those guys. And the good news is the Browns are in that group. The mere fact that J.J. Watt had Cleveland on the list is a boost, is a bonus, and it legitimizes what the Browns are doing.
Yeah, it is. Look, we've waited a long time, Mike, to be in this position where we've got a good cap situation. We've got a good young team. We don't have to immediately deal with anything in terms of huge extensions. The Miles extension is done. You can check out Baker and Denzel if you want this summer. You still have 2 years of control on that. But in a very enviable spot on a team that won 12 games, that won a playoff game without their head coach, for crying out loud, in Pittsburgh. And we do anticipate a plan being executed by Andrew Berry. As you look at the position that the Browns are in here, and you mentioned the J.J. Watt spot in terms of us being in consideration there, how big of players, after seeing what Andrew Berry did last year, do you think the Browns can be this year?
Oh, I think they could be very significant, and this is an opportunity to address some areas of need, to upgrade, to add some star power, to get some of these guys who are going to be chasing rings. The J.J. Watt decision and Arizona going all in and signing him at a time when other teams are interested. Look, we don't know who all is going to be available. There could be others available who are dollar for dollar. There's that phrase again, better value. And I think Von Miller eventually is going to be cut by the Broncos. And Von Miller, J.J. Watt, if you got $12 million budgeted for that spot and J.J. Watt doesn't want it and Von Miller does, or maybe even less than that because he wants to try to get another Super Bowl championship, then you're better off. So that's the key. Every guy you sign and you have any type of guaranteed money, which means he's definitely going to be on the team, that closes the door on someone else you could sign later. And I just think we're going to see a delayed reaction this year with guys popping up, other teams saying, oh, wow, hey, there's an opportunity. And then they're going to cut somebody who's going to hit the market and be available to somebody else. And that churn may last for a while with these veterans who have recognizable names who maybe once were stars but aren't at that level anymore.
Mike, you mentioned Von Miller as a guy who you think will ultimately end up being a free agent. Any other kind of big names that might be surprising or even not surprising that you think will come available as this process unfolds?
Well, one guy I've been keeping an eye on is Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers quarterback, just because I don't think they can justify paying him $25 million this year. And that they could go to him and they could squeeze him and they could say, hey, look, we want to keep you, but we don't want to keep you at $25 million. And if we cut you, no one's going to pay you $25 million this year. So I'm kind of watching him. And I'm also looking at the aftermath of the Dak Prescott contract. We talked at length on PFT Live this morning about Ezekiel Elliott. He's got $9.5 million in guaranteed salary this year, fully guaranteed. But by the end of the month, his salary for next year, 2022, of about $12.5 million will become fully guaranteed. I just wonder whether or not they bite the bullet, move on, and take the offset that they would get wherever else he lands this year and save some of that money and just be done with Ezekiel Elliott now. Because when you're paying your quarterback $40 million a year, some of these other items, especially a high-priced running back, become luxuries you can no longer afford.
Mike, you mentioned the Prescott deal. A year from now, 2 years from now, what does that look like? And We ask, obviously, because we have a guy who we're going to try to do an extension with in Baker Mayfield. We know there's new TV money coming in, and a lot of people said, well, as soon as this got done, well, Jerry knows, big money's coming, and this thing ain't going to look so bad. What do you make of the Prescott deal and the precedent and consent going forward?
That is the most, and it's funny. I was on Dan Patrick earlier today, and that came up. That is such a ridiculous take that's taken root. Everybody knows big money's coming. Jerry Jones isn't in possession of some crystal ball that's telling him that big money's coming. We're all anticipating these $100 billion in TV contracts are going to kick in, and the salary cap is going to go up. And that's the key. These cap dollars today, and as you push them off into future years, relatively speaking, they mean less because the cap keeps going up and up and up. And the challenge is to identify the quarterback that you have as the guy that you want. And you got to get it right. You don't want to be the Rams and pay Jared Goff, which was a mistake at the time. People were saying it was a mistake. It was almost like the Rams did it out of spite. Like, we'll show you, yeah, we believe in Jared Goff, and then they couldn't wait to dump his contract after 2 years of it. For the Browns, they know Baker Mayfield better than anyone. If he's the guy, if they've seen enough, if 2020 and 2018 outweigh 2019 enough to say he's the guy, you do it now. The sooner you do it, the cheaper it's going to be. And that's the one big lesson the Cowboys learned the hard way. They waited too long. If they'd have swooped in after Dak Prescott's third year, they'd have made him an offer that he couldn't refuse that would have been a lot less than it is now. And whether it's Mayfield, whether it's Josh Allen, whether it's Lamar Jackson, they are several years away from having the same leverage that Dak Prescott had. The key for now, though, is if their teams believe in them, you offer them something that they can't say no to. And if they continue to play like they have, that's a winner. Otherwise, you may be doing what the Rams did, trying to find some other quarterback that you can trade your guy for and not make it so obvious that you're actually giving up maybe as much as a first-round draft pick to get a bad quarterback contract off your books.
And that's the thing. And, for the Cowboys, they were balking at $30 million a year, and we now know where they ended up with Dak Prescott. Before we let you go, Mike, I wanted to ask you, though, and we're talking quarterbacks, what happens with Deshaun Watson? Because it seems like this is headed nowhere good, and certainly probably a lot of it is the Texans' own doing, but this is a pretty remarkable developing story.
Well, the reaction that I always hear when the Deshaun Watson topic comes up is there's no way in hell that the Texans can trade Deshaun Watson. Well, that's correct in the abstract, but the problem is there should be no way in hell that it gets to the point where your franchise quarterback is determined to get out of town. They've already screwed this up. The question is, what can they do to unscrew it up? Is there anything they can do? And they seem to be deluded by this possibility he's going to wake up one day and say, you know what, it's out of my system. I'm fine. I'm fine with David Culley and Nick Caserio. Yeah, everything's fine. And the problem, I think, is the longer they wait to acknowledge where this stands, the harder it's going to be to get the most they can. Right now is the time to get the most for Deshaun Watson because you find out who he'll play for and you have an auction for his contract. And as these other teams address their quarterback needs for this year, they fall out of that conversation, and then it becomes harder to just get – you want to spark a bidding war among as many teams as possible to get the most for Deshaun Watson. But, I've seen no indication that would suggest he's not being truthful, that he's posturing, that it's a bluff, that he will never play for the Texans again. Consistently, the message is he's done playing for the Texans, and the Texans seem to be the last ones to be willing to acknowledge that fact.
Mike, you're the best. Thanks for your time, man.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, calling in on the Fifth Third Money Line. A reminder, all guests who appear on Cleveland Browns Daily do so via the Fifth Third Money Line, Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns Daily a Fifth Third better. Coming up next, our CBD free agency big board continues. Let's look at the defensive tackles. We will get into that coming up next. You listen to CBD on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Winter weather, absolutely devastating to your home, which means it's time for you to call the pros at Perfect Power Wash. Dirt, mold, algae, they accumulate on the exterior of your home. They lead to costly damages. PPW's safe process and professional techs help remove these contaminants to keep your house looking protected. Call the pros today at 888-860-WASH to save 10% and take advantage of priority scheduling. The whole process couldn't be easier. One call does it all. The professionals at PPW will provide a free quote, schedule your service. So if you want a perfectly clean home this spring, call the pros at 888-860-WASH or visit perfectpowerwash.com. Remember, the early bird gets the savings on this one, guys. So call 888-860-WASH today. Use the promo code BEAU to save 10% on that. All right, time to take a look at our free agency big board on the defensive tackle, and for that we bring in Dr. Z.
Yeah, and this is one of the positions where you're not expecting much. Let's look at what we've got. Coming back, we've got 3 defensive tackles on the roster heading into the season. So you know that there is going to have to be an addition somewhere. Is that going to be free agency? Is that going to be the draft? You've got Sheldon Richardson. You got Andrew Billings, who's backed after opting out, and you've got last year's 3rd-round pick Jordan Elliott. So what are you looking for? My guess is we're looking for a guy, a cheap veteran who can fill in and be a part of the rotation, or we're drafting somebody else into this room. But you're pretty good. You're going to ultimately need to add multiple guys to get through training camp, because right now in the interior we've got 3. You're going to need like 6 by the time you get to camp of defensive tackles. And again, it's a team. We are a team that is only going to play 2 defensive tackles. Maybe, obviously in a goal line you play multiple, but lots of times in passing situations you only have one of your interior guys on the field. So it's not a huge position of importance, but you've got Sheldon, you've got Billings, you've got Elliott. So who are the candidates? Who are guys that you could bring back? Well, let's start with that. Who could he bring back? Larry Ogunjobi had 5.5 sacks in each of 2018-19, dropped to 2.5 this year. Spent his whole career here. Certainly knows the system. Maybe didn't make the leap that you had hoped he would make this season in this defense. But a guy that is going to bring it, a beloved teammate and a great Brown. What's the market going to be like for Larry Ogunjobi? So is that, I think ultimately if the price is right, he's somebody you would look to bring back. And then there's Vincent Taylor, who I thought played very well and is somebody that you would imagine you could bring back on the league minimum, unrestricted free agent, but he had a knack for getting his hand on the ball. He had blocked field goals. He had the tip that led to the Porter Gustin interception against the Steelers in the wild card win. So, and he's a guy that was liked, and I know the coaches liked him. So those are your 2 that you could bring back. Who are some guys that are out there that perhaps could be worth a look? And I really went through this. Not a lot of names because I don't know really what their philosophy is. My guess is it's going to be minimalist. So it's going to be like bringing back a Vincent Taylor, drafting a guy in the middle to later rounds. It's going to be, or bringing back Ogunjobi if he finds the market not to be what he thought it would be and saying, okay, let's get another year in this system. Let's see what we can do. Some of the names that came to mind, if you're trying to make a little bit of a splash, right? And Ndamukong Suh's out there. He still had 50 pressures last year. Jarrell Casey, was a longtime star for the Titans. He had 50 or more pressures every year from 2013 to 19. Went to Denver, got hurt. It didn't work out last year. Those are the 2 veterans of note. Most of the interior defensive line free agent class are all run-stopping guys. So I tried to really scour and come up with a name that maybe could make sense that we thought would be a little bit better in our system than elsewhere. And the only name I could really come up with was a guy, Roy Robertson Harris, who's 27, a former edge rusher at UTEP. In college, he was an edge rusher, so he's got some pass rush skills. He's transitioned into the interior. He's 6'7", so he's a big guy. He had 12 pressures last year, and he's a solid rotational piece. And I think that's more, we're looking in the solid rotational piece category much more than we're looking in the Ndamukong Suh, Jarrell Casey category, I would think.
Yeah.
So
this is without question the least need on our defense.
Yes.
Is this position.
100%.
So, yeah, and in turn also one of the least needs on the whole team. So it's something where if you find something right, great, but otherwise you feel very comfortable with the 3 you've got. And and the options are there for you to do some bargain hunting if you want to.
Right, and I think that's what it ultimately is. Do we think a guy like Roy Robertson Harris fits into our mix? Does Larry find, that the free agent market for him is not what he wanted it to be, and you're able to bring him back on, a close to a minimum type of a deal? Then, yeah, you'd certainly make that investment in bringing Larry Ogunjobi back. Vincent Taylor, I think, is a guy who could easily be back. And so you're looking at, we have a lot of unrestricted free agents. I don't know that the market is going to be necessarily what they want. And so that's maybe a week or 2 or 3 into the process, you're able to bring guys back. The other thing I would say, and Mike Florio hit on it, is, there are guys that are going to want to take 1-year deals, try to chase a ring, and then cash in coming off of that the next year. And we're a team that could fit that bill. We're a team that could be on the receiving end of somebody looking to take or make such a deal. And so for the Browns, if there could be something that what I would say is kind of surprises you about it all, and you say, oh, why, that wasn't in my plans, but this is a great player who wants to play here. Sure, we'll bring him in, which is why I listed, in Ndamukong Suh. Casey is more of a projection because he didn't do much last year, but Ndamukong Suh was dominant on the Super Bowl champions. So I just think it's going to end up being, you're going to bring back, I bet Taylor ends up coming back, and maybe you bring in a Roy Robertson Harris, you draft a guy in the mid-rounds, or you bring in some undrafted tackles, et cetera.
Jordan Elliott was a guy who was, so good in camp, who you like a lot from his tape at Missouri. And the one thing that you feel about this organization and Andrew Berry in this front office is, they're going to draft and develop guys. And Elliott's a guy who you feel like would be ready for an expanded role as well. And so there are options there going forward. And I think with Sheldon, you're going to see a lot of these guys restructuring with this cap. And he is a guy that would make sense on that front as well, if that's something that happens. And we got a couple of those guys on this team as we try to do some maneuvering before the start of free agency and legal tampering on Monday.
Yeah, there's going to be opportunities. You've got, Sheldon Richardson's carrying a big number this year, and you absolutely, I think everybody wants him here. He wants to be here. His cap number is $13.16 million. The way that it's written out, it'd be $11.5 in cap savings, $1.6 in dead money. So there's an opportunity to restructure that with Sheldon and say, okay, this is the last year for you of the 3-year deal that we signed you to. Let's see if we can go ahead and come up with a way to put another year on the deal, push some of this money forward, et cetera. So that's what you're looking at, I think, if you're the Browns. So he's somebody that you would look at and say, that's a candidate. Obviously, Jarvis is somebody you want to have here for the long term, and he's in a similar situation where the guaranteed money is mostly coming off of his deal, and next year, would be the same thing. So let's restructure that. Let's push the number down, give you some more guaranteed money, see what we can do. And Joel Bitonio is the other one who fits that bill for the Browns. Joel's at the point now in his contract that he signed, where he is through the guaranteed money, and so he's somebody that could be restructured or extended. Right? It's an extension, and it's just about moving the cash around from year to year to year. Because if you say, look, we know you, we want you here this year and next year, we can give you a lot more next year when there's probably another 40, 50 million to play with relative to this season. Because I expect the cap to shoot back up next year.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Yeah, this is going to be fascinating. It was interesting hearing Mike talk about because that is the team that comes to mind, is that 94 49er team, where that's the one that comes to mind, where that was everybody jumping on that bandwagon. Obviously, Dion at the forefront of it.
Dion, Ken Norton, Haley came back. You had everybody, and really, what struck me as somebody who was there at the time, it was that the 49ers as an organization knew we can't play by the normal rules anymore like we did when we had the great Joe Montana. We need to prop up Steve Young with a mercenary squad so that he can take the monkey off his back and hopefully beat Stan Humphries in the Super Bowl without a superstar supporting cast. Who knows if that was possible? So that was really – I even made a note about that. I wrote that down. Florio, Steve Young needed a lot of help. That was the quote that I heard.
There are times when you do a show like this where you put something on a tee and it's sitting there like a watermelon, and you know that it's going to be hit. It's just a question of, do you hit it right in the sweet spot? And that's what just happened here, kids. That was the kids.
We were coming back to that. Had you not brought it up now,
I know
we weren't getting out of here.
What am I, hard of bringing things up? Of course I was bringing it up.
That was the one note I took.
Of course.
from Florio. And other
Right.
things I filed in my
Right.
mind, but
I-
the written word.
I want the watermelons there. You've got a
Yeah.
beautiful Easton
I was like
back
Gallagher
that's
right
been
there.
grooved. Yeah,
Had my
you really
mallet.
were. You were ready. The delivery was flawless. It's a good job out of you, to say the least.
Thank you.
Much more to come here, including a look at the offensive side of the line situation coming up in the second hour. Go around the league as well. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Obsessing over something like football can be a problem. If you're obsessing over gambling, it can be downright dangerous. Do something to take your mind off it, like find a hobby perhaps. If you want more tips, go to keepitfunohio.com for great ways to keep gambling fun. So you're at the Hall tomorrow night, 7 o'clock?
It'll be 8 o'clock tomorrow night. 8 o'clock.
Oh, 8 to 9?
Browns Live. 75th anniversary special. That's right. 8 o'clock, 8 to 9. Myself and Jim Donovan. We'll talk about the history. We'll look forward to the bright future. There's a really cool offensive line roundtable with Joe Thomas, Deke, and Jedrick Wills. Denzel Ward will be stopping by. Peter King will be stopping by. Coach Stefanski will be stopping by. So, yeah, we got.
Everyone's going to be
no,
in
not
Canton,
physically.
Or are you doing Zoom and all this?
I think Jim and
You'll be in Canton, though, right?
Jim and I will be there physically. And, of course, Hanford Dixon, the top dog, Jarvis. I mean, we've got it's pretty loaded up. It's pretty loaded up. But I think Jim and I will be there physically. Everybody else is Zooming.
When can the Hoff go in?
Isn't it
still
5
3 years out?
Isn't it 5 years?
Yeah, he's 3 years out from going in.
Just put him in already.
Well, he's going in on the first. I'm just saying he's still a couple of years out. That is going to be a scene.
We can't put him in if he's volunteering to go into games, playoff games.
Why don't you give it?
Well,
that speaks even more to his Hoffness.
What I'm saying is that would make him another 5 years from that moment.
Well, he didn't go into the game, so clock's still ticking.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have some fun with that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's going to be.
Do you think that we'll be invited to the parties?
That's what I don't know. I feel like we're on the border. I feel like we're closer. We get closer every day. So by the time in 3 years, I mean, I think so.
Oh, we're going.
Do you remember?
We text. We all text.
We
text on
well, I
the
know
reg.
we're going. I understand, but
like
do you
you're
remember?
on the reg
Do you remember an HBO? There was an HBO series called The Sopranos. Are you guys aware of this show? Have you guys seen this show?
No.
That it was on television.
No, don't follow on social.
It's about a man and his family in New Jersey, and the thing that was kind of the behind secret is that he was a mob boss, and he met a psychiatrist, and so there was all sorts of little tales that spun off of that, and one of them was there was a restaurant called Vesuvio that his buddy Artie Bucco ran.
Artie Bucco.
And you love Artie Bucco. Boy, it ran hot for him, hot and cold.
Jeez,
just a little. Holding it a little too tight.
Yeah.
But he had a lovely wife named Charmaine, and the reason I'm telling you this story is coming soon. So they have I want to say a graduation party for their eldest daughter, whose name was Meadow Soprano. Okay, so they have this graduation party. I'm thinking that's what it was, and they invite the Buccos over as part of, in the Buccos' mind, as a celebration, as guests for the party, and the head patriarch is a man named Tony. So it's Tony Soprano, his wife Carmela, and during this early parts of this party, Carmela Soprano points to Charmaine Bucco. You want to give a little hand with the food here? And that's kind of what I think we're going to be with Joe Thomas at the Hall of Fame party. We're going to be Charmaine Bucco. We're going to think we're going in. We're ready to go. Next thing you know, we're on the outside. We're doing some podcast about it. That's the way I think it's going to go. We're Charmaine Bucco.
That's fine.
Which is fine.
That's fine.
I'll man the keg all night long. That's what my professional job was in college. I'd go right to the keg, commandeer it, and that way all my friends would drink house beer, and I, come to the front of the line because I'm running it.
Who I feel like of us, like who would Gibby be on that show if you've seen it? Who's the Gibby equivalent?
I don't think I can say this guy's name.
No, you can't. And how dare you?
I mean, that was just like right out of the gate. That's easy.
No, but he's got more loyalty. Gibby would never flip. He would never flip. That's the
earlier
difference.
in the program threatened to collapse a wall on me. What do you mean?
That's just because you're being dumb.
What do you mean?
The loyalty of Gibby, though, would be hard for him to flip, unlike Mr. Bumpensero. It would be very difficult.
Could he be like Paulie Walnuts?
I'd be happy to
Paulie Walnuts?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good one. Maybe that could be your poll question today. Which Sopranos character is Gibby?
Gibby, yeah. Give us all roles.
We could do that.
Although it's easy with one person because we need the options. It's not a fill-in-the-blank type of a poll.
Yeah, you have to have the options. It's too difficult to do that.
So who are the options?
I think you're
BP,
you're clearly Maltasanti.
BP. Who, I am? I'm never going to sit on a dog
for sure.
and kill it.
No,
Come on.
I'm not. Listen, none of us are going to be literally what these people were. If you've seen the shows, they've did some very bad things. I just mean you're the golden boy of the organization. Everyone loves you. That's you. I mean, that's how Chrissy was.
I got to try to.
I mean, Chrissy took some turns that you wouldn't take, obviously.
Then. Yeah, right.
Yeah, went south in a hurry.
Boy, did it. What was his girl's name?
Oh yeah, I feel like I could be Sil. I could be Silvio. That seems like a good
Sil's
spot
great.
for me.
Yeah, Gibbe could be Paulie or BP.
Yeah.
What was the other guy? Bobby Baklava.
Bobby Bacala, who's so loyal. Bobby Bacala.
Yes. Doesn't he end up marrying Janice, the killer of Richie Apria?
Of course he does. That's right. Richie Apria.
My buddy does text me. He goes, "You do know he's friends with The Rock. You three are going to be valets outside. Like, understand.
Charmaine.
We are down the floor.
We are definitely Charmaine.
I think once, like,
the outside.
I don't know. I think we've got some food bonding that's really helped us along, and then
coffee, whiskey, wine bonding.
Yeah,
we got lots of it.
A lot of bonding. All right. So
yeah,
I think
get him back in studio physically though.
Yeah,
that'll help. Yeah.
By then.
All right. So what? Yeah. So wait. Who is Gibby on the HBO show The Sopranos? Who is Gibby? And it can be Sal Bump and Sorrow, Paulie Walnuts.
Yeah. Just put B period P. Period.
You could, that would be a way to do it. And then Bobby Bacala. Like those are the guys. Those are the loyalties. The loyalties.
Oh gosh.
Like Gibby, do you have a train collection of?
What about when he's lamenting the traffic
trains?
and it's actually the
train?
Just a devastating scene. Yeah,
I don't think any of these
he's bumping
are
sorrow.
Whatsoever.
He's clearly
knowing the show.
Paulie Walnuts is
I
definitely
think bumping sorrow is perfect, and Paulie for sure is absolutely.
Flattering.
How dare
he's
you?
Mount Rushmore.
Paulie killed
and I think bumping sorrow is too.
Best friend.
Well, what do you want? Look, I just made him beat Chrissy. Chrissy didn't exactly make a lot of the right turns.
Sal's pretty good, but I don't know. Was he loyal?
Sal Bumpensero.
I don't believe
so. Well, no, he flipped.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
No.
You're touting
but you
his
said
loyalty.
you said Gibby would throw a wall on you, so that would allow for him to be Bumpensero.
Sal was so anxious though. Like he always had a lot of it. Like Gibby, I feel like is calm. Gibby's like Paulie Walnuts. He will sit in the face of danger. He doesn't care. I had a good run. You want me to go walk into it? You want me to go walk?
Great run.
You want me to go walk in a forest with snow and look for some Russians?
Oh,
sure, I'll do it.
If I tell you, I would put a decent amount of Bitcoin of my own on any scenario where you two reenacted that episode in the Pine Barrens, fighting over ketchup. I would.
Unbelievable.
I would pay to have a camera on you two freezing. I would love it. I'd love nothing more. Do you remember how Bacala shows up to save him when he goes with toadies and hunting gear? It's amazing.
The show's so great.
In case you haven't seen, just in case you're aware of that show. All right, we will go around the league. We will talk to a great friend Terry Pluto will join us as well coming up, plus the offensive line situation. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here from my friends at Weather Seal Home Services. Need a roof replacement? Would you like to replace your roof for the last time ever? That's the benefit of choosing a metal roof from Weather Seal. Metal roof technology, materials, styles, and colors have improved significantly. They are beautiful and nearly indestructible. And get this, guys, affordable. Plus, with a new metal roof, Weather Seal includes 6-inch gutter upgrade and up to 7 years, zero-interest financing. That's right, 7 years, zero interest. Call my guys at Weather Seal, 877-351-SEAL, or visit weathersealhomeservices.com. Do it today. They will take care of you the way that they take care of us. We have the best listeners, the best fans. It's incredible how quickly people spring into motion, Brown's Therapy among them. I also saw the exact scene that I was describing is in GIF form and was sent to us as well, of Carmella from Sammy Soprano, who has Carmella waving Charmaine over. Yeah, you need to help. That's how that needs to go. So that's a good job out of them. That's a fun time. Oh, you'll enjoy this. I had there was a wrestler in the early 90s named Randy Macho Man Savage.
Yes,
there was a wrestler at that time.
Where?
And every once in a while he comes on this show, which is pretty cool. He once did a promo. He once did a promo that I was unaware of until recently, where he uses the phrase "champion's prerogative," which is
you had not heard of that before. No. Amazing how that escaped you.
Yeah, it did escape me. So I somehow this hopped into my head over the weekend, and I started using it on the boys. Anytime, like, I decided when we were in Florida, I would say, if I would tell them to go get me something or go do this, go do that, I would just say champion's prerogative to them. They don't know what it means. So at school yesterday,
did you at least put a little Mach accent on it? Did you give him a little? Did you do a little impression? Or you just straight?
No.
Just matter of fact?
No. I'm a man that knows my limitations. I don't. Okay. I can't. If I can't do it, I won't. So the Bootsies had this prom at school where there's a couple of little buddies in his class who are fat that are claiming that they can beat him in a race, and he's not having it. He's not having it.
Of course, he's not having it.
So he says he races them every day, and he beats them every day, and every day they say they're faster. So yesterday, every day I pick him up from school, and he tells me how it goes, and every day we talk about this race. It's been going on for months. So yesterday he goes, "Dad, I raced Bowden and Jackson, and I beat him." And afterwards I said, "Champion's prerogative."
Oh, goodness.
So he's going around to his brothers when he beat him at Mario Kart or Mario Deluxe or anything, and he's just dropping champion's prerogative upside him.
What you need to get is for all of – because you guys are constantly having – and I might even have one. I'm sure I've got one. But you guys are constantly having these competitions and stakes. You need to have a belt in the house.
Oh, my gosh, is that a great idea?
The champion gets to have the belt, and that's when he could – when he's the champ – he can offer his brothers. Would you like to hold this belt? Oh, yeah, you want to hold the belt? Yeah, real nice. Feel it, yeah. And then as soon as they reach for it, pulls it back. Changed my mind. Champion's prerogative, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to get a belt. You guys need a belt in the house.
What one do I need to get?
Doesn't even matter.
What's the belt that I need?
Any toy WWE Championship belt. I'd get the big gold belt is always nice if you go old school that Flair had and all those ones. That's a beautiful belt. Yeah.
I just want him to come down.
Right.
I want him to come down to breakfast every morning and just go with it on and just go too easy.
Yeah, he should wear it. He should wear it.
He does.
Doing
He's
this,
dropping a lot of
he
too
almost
easy
needs
champions prerogatives.
He almost needs an embroidered robe that says like the bold on the back of it.
He'd wear it
like a terry cloth robe that says the bold in quotes on. I could see bold. Like a blue robe with white writing on the back with the bold in quotes.
I like it.
And then he opens the robe and he's got the belt around his waist. I mean, there's a lot that
kind of like a Ravishing Rick Rude robe, maybe.
Yeah. What I'd like to have now is for my two brothers to sit down and shut up while I take my robe off and show them what a real champion looks like.
Oh, amazing.
You need.
Amazing.
I feel like
I thought you'd be proud of your nephew.
I feel like I've had a nice influence on Bootsy from afar. And so I can't wait that, especially when we have the transformative turkey and we get to be
turkey.
And we get to be in the same space together. I feel like I'm going to really be able to continue to
Yeah.
help the young bold. As
I
he
think it'll be a
develops.
lot like when Will Hunting finally gets with the professor, and it just clicks. I think that's what it'll be when you and him have some time, and all of a sudden I'll be like the assistant professor. Go get me a coffee, Dad. I got work I'm going to do here. I think that's how that's going to go. Is a lot like that. All right, let's go around the league. Did you see this story? This is a pretty remarkable story. The Seahawks sent a letter to season ticket holders with mention of Lockett, of DK Metcalf, of their new offensive coordinator and run game coordinator, but no mention of Russell Wilson. That's an attention getter.
So, come on, man. How is that even, first of all, how is that possible? How is that possible? Right. Shane Waldron?
No, it's not. It's intentional,
and
right?
Andy Dickerson get mentions, and you're going to tell me Russ does not?
Right.
I mean, that's what it appears to be. Has anybody put out the letter online? That's what I was searching for, and I haven't seen anybody post. I've seen that people are saying it, but I want to see it. I want to read the letter myself. That's what I would like to do, is read the letter myself, which I have not yet been able to do. Although, here's a picture. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here it is. Yeah. On the field, we are proud to have won 12-plus games for the 5th time in franchise history, capture our 11th NFC West championship. We scored a record 459 points. Yeah, and it goes right in the next sentence. We also witnessed incredible individual feats, including single-season receiving records by DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and matched a franchise record with 7 players being named to the 2020 Pro Bowl. Wow. Yeah, no, that isn't. They're not happy. I was telling you, this is the opposite in many ways of the Texans situation. The Seahawks right now, they're pissed. Schneider and Pete Carroll are pissed, and everybody was saying, "Oh, well, just get rid of Pete Carroll if it's Carroll or Russ." It's bigger than that. It's basically the Seahawks organization is unified in their distaste for the way that Russell Wilson handled this. And you're hearing little smatterings
abundantly clear
from former guys who were with him back in the heyday who are not as many flattering comments about Russ as you would expect.
Well, no, and I mean, there's always been that undercurrent about him around the league in terms of, the phony or the fake part and all of that. That's always kind of been around there, and you'll put up with that to a certain extent as long as the production's there. And they just didn't they just give him $60 million guaranteed like 2 years ago?
Yeah, not long ago. That's right.
Yeah, so it says it's not. I understand why there would be some anger on their end of things. Go ahead, sir.
Cool Trav tweets the show, and he says, if you're emailing your most loyal customers asking them to dole out money, it makes sense to avoid referencing the one thing they're probably the most pissed off about. So they're trying to just bury, like, there's nothing happening with us and Russell Wilson. I think if you're burying it, you just mention, and Russ was great as always.
You act like he's, exactly right.
Right.
Yep.
I think this is making an issue.
The other.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
I would agree. The NFL draft is 50 days away from today. It'll be here before we know it, my friend, right here in Cleveland. That's going to be a fun one, and I'm fascinated to see what happens in the next 50 days and what that thing will look like.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I'm not even sure they know, but you would have to think.
Could they?
I don't know if you saw Jerry and Dak in-person press conference, probably the first in-person press conference we've had in a long, long time, so maybe that gives you a little hope that perhaps there could be a draft here in Cleveland. But don't you need to know? Don't you need to know?
I would think you'd want a little heads up, yeah.
50 days,
You'd want a little heads up.
5-0.
Yeah. And I think and you saw that the Texas Rangers are having full stands for baseball.
Yeah.
Because Texas is wide open. So there you go. 2 Americas, my friend. Big win for you all. Coming up next, our good buddy Terry Pluto, Cleveland.com, the Plain Dealer, will join the program. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If your game plan for the season includes buying or selling a home, Howard Hanna Real Estate Services has you covered. Visit howardhanna.com/GoBrowns today for more on that. And with that, we head on the Fifth Third Money Line for a visit with our old buddy Terry Pluto, Cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer joining us. Terry, thanks so much for taking the time. We are a week away from free agency. We have an organization that won 12 games. We've got a bunch of young talent. We've got some money to spend, and certainly an opportunity here. As you look at the situation that Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, Paul DePodesta have put this franchise in right now, is it as good as you can remember going back how long?
Yes. How's that? It is. I don't know how long. I mean, I guess the 80s. And even back then, I did the Cavaliers during the Bernie Kosar years, so I wasn't connected, to the Browns, other than just, watching the games or whatnot. So, in effect, since I really started paying attention to them as a writer, it's never been this good. And that goes, by the way, I became a columnist in 1993, just in time for Bernie Kosar to get released.
Right.
So just if you were to make a list of everything from then, because that's really where because when you're doing the NBA or you do baseball, which I did before that, you're consumed with those things. That's all you think about, and the other stuff's just kind of casual. So where I really began to pay attention to the Browns was 93 and that, and then 94 they had the 1 year where they made the playoffs with Testaverde and then the move, all that other stuff. So this is really exciting, and I'm just so glad I don't have to look at quarterbacks in the draft and that stuff.
It is quite a nice feeling to know that you do not have to look at that position and that you're set there not only with your starter but with your backup as well in Case Keenum, at least for the short term with Case Keenum. This season, obviously, it was magical, but you knew going into last year a lot of work on the offense. This year, it's going to be a lot of work on the defense for the Browns. And it started, J.J. Watt was the first name out there, showed interest in the Browns. It didn't happen, and I think that's an okay thing and a good thing for the Browns ultimately.
It was fine with me. I'm not giving that guy 2 years. I was lukewarm about him from the beginning. When you look at his whole injury history, maybe he turns around and plays 16 games and gets 10 sacks. And I mean, that's possible, but, would you really bet on that? And I mean, my thing generally is when guys have had a lot of injuries of late, what you could say, when they're an older player, even like Kevin Love in basketball, or a pitcher continually has arm problems, and maybe he has a good year here in between where he doesn't have any, the chances of putting two of those back to back, in my mind, are fairly remote. It's not the player's fault. It's just human genetics and what happens to your body. And football is just brutal on these people. So I thought, if they could get him on Olivia Vernon with a little more money kind of contract, sure, but they weren't going to go, all in like that. And you could tell they got rid of Claiborne even. I think they looked at him and probably thought, can we squeeze another even decent year out of him? Probably not. Let's take some of that money and try to go get a younger defensive end or linebacker even if they go to sometimes I keep thinking they're going to go to more of a kind of a 3-4 sort of thing, or with the 5 safeties or that stuff.
It could be an evolution on that defense. And, as you mentioned, you talked about J.J. Watt. I would say, how do you rank the priorities if you were trying to assess the pieces that need to be added, whether it's free agency or the draft defensively for the Browns? How do you rank those?
Secondary is number one with me. I'd like to have that on the line, but the way it got decimated last year with injuries, and we all love Denzel Ward. We really like to see him play 15 or 16 games.
Yep.
And so that's there, and the other cornerback, Greedy Williams. I was glad Mary Kay got a hold of him. We got to hear his side, but my goodness, you talk about nerve damage. I mean, that's scary stuff.
Yes.
And so cornerbacks, I know they're excited about having Delbert come back, Ronnie Harrison. I'd like to see them get a really good safety be in that mix too, because besides, would like to play. You guys are more locked into this than I am, the X's and O's. It seems like he likes the whole 3 safety thing.
Yes, he would be very happy to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think he'd be more comfortable. So I wouldn't be surprised they throw a bunch of money at a safety, if they can't get a cornerback they like. But so that's where I would go. And then I want a pass rusher too, but I just think you saw how they look slow in that when they played Kansas City and a couple other teams, and that's got to change.
Yeah, speed, and we talk about it on both sides of the ball here on the program. Talk about it certainly at wide receiver as well, with potentially getting somebody who can take the top off of the defense, something that we lacked last year. One thing, and you mentioned this, Terry, off the top, but that we don't have to worry about is quarterback. And what we saw really in real time was a quarterback learn a system on the fly and change on the fly. And it really, you can really look at that interception that where Odell Beckham Jr. gets hurt in the Cincinnati game. From that point on, Baker's a 20-touchdown, 2-interception guy.
It's a phenomenal
way.
thing.
It was incredible to watch. Had you ever seen anything like that? Because there was times early in the season where you wondered, he seemed like he couldn't find his way. And then all of a sudden, it flipped in that game.
Remember, he had played poorly. I think it was against Pittsburgh the game before, if I remember right.
Yes.
And then the Cincinnati, he throws that. In fact, wasn't it Pittsburgh where they ended up pulling him because he was taking such a bad beating?
And he was pretty banged up going into that game. Yeah,
yes,
that was.
And so he's banged up. First pass picked off, and I'm going, oh no, don't tell me this guy's like going the way of Derek Anderson or something. I mean, I didn't believe that, but it's like it's easy to go there if you follow the Browns. And then he gets hot the rest of the game. Peoples-Jones makes the big catch. And by the way, the guy that takes the top off the defense, to my mind, doesn't have to be a guy that's getting targeted, 7 to 10 times a game either. It could just be a guy that has the potential to do that. Maybe Peoples-Jones and somebody else, like they used Perryman a couple of years ago. That kind of guy is a player that could help you. And so I give Baker a lot of credit because they not only the changes fundamentally they did with him, but think of mentally what they asked to do, not just learning it, but saying you are no longer the center of the universe on offense. And that was new for him. And, we're going to run especially in the beginning, we're going to run the ball, make the easy throw. And, that's basically, if you're not receptive to that, thinking, well, they must not think I'm that good if that's what they want to do. And you could lose your confidence as opposed to, that's the old tear them down to build them up technique is what they were doing. So I give him a lot of credit on that part because he had to go through that mental change, and I'm sure it was humbling.
It was, and I think everything we've learned from being here and talking to coaches is that he took it very well and took the coaching very well, and you could see after that bye week the changes. And, when you think about this organization's belief in Baker Mayfield, I would go to the wild card win over the Steelers, and you say, okay, they cut it to 12. Everybody's getting a little bit nervous, and you could feel it. It was palpable even there for me, and I know anybody who was watching it at home felt that. By the way, nice thing to feel nervous when you're up 12 on the road in the second half of a wild card game. But that drive, 6 plays, 80 yards, 5 of the 6 plays they called were passes. And I've talked with Mike Prefer and Alex Van Pelt about it, who was Alex Van Pelt obviously calling the plays that game. They said, we want this to be on Baker's shoulders, and he delivered in that moment. And I think that is going to be a big springboard. We really became a passing team over the second half of the year, which is ironic. Without Odell, we did, and I think that's probably one of the things why you have number one keeping Hollywood Higgins on your free agent preview because of that chemistry.
I mean, I don't want to throw zillions of dollars at him, but it's the old Bill Belichick. I can only go by what I see, and you can only go by what the numbers say. And you can only go by even kind of what your heart says, which is that the quarterback and Higgins have a special connection. What was it? He caught 38 out of 39 catchable balls or something like that on Pro Football Focus or Outsiders. I forgot which. That's a comfort zone for me, whether I'm watching a game or if I'm a quarterback throwing the ball.
Yeah, and
it was something that you can't coach it. Either you have it or you don't, and those two certainly
do. How many yards per catch he averaged? I forgot what it was.
16.5 last year, career high.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot.
12 yards a target. It was a lot. And I think, you mentioned going back to the Kansas City game, and I think here is the conundrum for the Browns is that what jumped out to you was speed. And Hollywood, very productive in the scheme. He's great. Jarvis was great as well all season long. That Odell's really your only guy that has that true speed element. And that, the other thing is you're saying I don't want to break the bank for Hollywood Higgins, and I understand why you're saying it. There's a ton of money already tied up in that position. But if I'm another team in the NFL, I think Hollywood Higgins looks like a darn good number 2 receiver that my quarterback's going to love, and they're hopefully going to develop that chemistry. Whereas here, you're not going to be able to pay him number 2 receiver money. So I hope that he wants to come back and play here. And if I was, from the Browns standpoint, selfishly, say, Hollywood, here's a candidate to take a 1-year deal, stay here, go for a nice run, continue to produce like you always have, and then in 2022, it's probably, unfortunately, maybe Hollywood goes and cashes in big somewhere else with a huge new salary cap.
Well, I mean, the other thing would be you could backload the contract a little bit because doesn't the cap's supposed to go way up a year from now, that kind of stuff. And the assumption, now granted, I am not the biggest Odell fan in town or whatever, so I have to always fight my biases. But I'm very strong on Higgins the other way. I've liked him from the first time I met him in 2016, and I asked him, what kind of receiver are you? And he looks me in the eye and he says, I'm a catch-the-ball kind of receiver. And I thought, I have never heard a player say that, and actually that's what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like, what kind of hitter are you? I'm the kind of hitter that gets hits. I mean, it's like, oh, that's a good one. Think about it. So when you look at Odell, and he is coming off the ACL, and he's missed 40% of the games over the previous 4 years, it goes back to what I was mentioning before about J.J. Watt. You always have to watch the battle between a player, like how he plays, and his name. You want a player. You don't necessarily want a name. One of John Hart's old lines when he was the GM of the Indians, and I was close with Hart. He says, "You don't want a star to fall on you," and just like because the player doesn't realize that he isn't as good as he used to be, and you have to go through all that. And that's especially true, I think, for a guy. Now, maybe Odell comes all the way back and he plays 16 games and he's terrific, and I could be wrong, but I have a hard time just making a big bet on that one. Whereas Jarvis just plays. He just plays. And he should never miss the COVID game. It just was the thing that the guy's played every game.
Yeah, that's all he does.
It's unbelievable. He just plays.
Yeah.
I mean, he played with
Terry,
ribs. He played with and granted, I'm not saying Odell should play with an ACL. You get what I'm saying, though.
Right.
He doesn't seem to have a body that gets that type of injury that takes you out for a long time. And all of Odell's injuries have been big deals, too. Torn quad muscles and what was it, fractured ankle, and I forgot what else. But they were all. I looked them all up one time and said, "Oh, that's bad medical history there."
Yeah, it certainly is. One of the things that's going to be really special this year for the franchise, for the town, for the incredible fan base, the 75th anniversary of the Browns.
Yeah.
We're 50 days out from the draft. There's a generation of young Browns fans that are getting to grow up with this team the way two generations ago were able to grow up with Bernie and those 80s Browns, and generations beyond that. It does feel like a seminal moment for the franchise now after what has been obviously a tough couple of decades since the relaunch, to be able to deliver this type of season. I think you add to it fans coming back after not being in the stands last year. It's got a chance to be pretty special this summer. You've been here a long time, and this one certainly is stacking up to be pretty special.
What I hope we're entering into is like when the Indians, the 90s, when they began to get good in 94. Of course, there was a strike. It was a weird season with the strike, and then it continued, the late 90s. There are a group of fans that they grew up with that, say, 5 or 6 years of teams with the Indians. And, they unlike most of us who grew up with, decades upon decades of lousy teams, just like many Browns fans have. And it's not out of the question in my mind with this front office and this coaching staff and this quarterback that we could be in for a, 3 to 6 year really good run with this.
And that's the dream scenario. And I think that you've got a lot of those key pieces in place. And now it's a matter of, for Andrew Berry executing the plan. And that's, I think, Terry, as you look at this team, one thing that I'm guessing, and I'll ask you, do you feel good about the fact that Berry and Stefanski and DePodesta are going to put together a good plan on how to make sure that this isn't just a flash in the pan, that this is a team that is good year after year?
I mean, I remember when I wrote my book, Browns Blues, and Phil Savage told me about, this was 2008, and he traded like a second-round, third-round draft pick for 2 defensive linemen. One was a Williams guy from Green Bay, and another Cedric Rogers from Detroit. And they had Super Bowl fever. and they bring in these kind of broken down linemen, and the whole thing just fell apart. Derek Anderson was a fluke, but it could go away. But I don't see these guys doing that. I don't see the front office falling into that temptation. And I think with DePodesta, especially having obviously a really strong say now, he's not going to let. I think if there is pressure from ownership to make short-term type moves, I think he can, have a strong enough case and credibility to say, no, we don't want to do that. We're not always trading for the future, but we can't just throw the whole future away, too, in the NFL. So I'm excited to see how they're going to play this offseason.
Yeah, we are, too, and it starts next week. Terry, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it a great deal.
Great to talk to you guys. Take care.
All right, that's Terry Pluto, legendary columnist for the Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com, and he joined on the Fifth Third Money Line. A reminder, all guests who appear on Cleveland Browns Daily do so via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns Daily a Fifth Third better. We bring back Dr. Z for a look at the offensive linemen, and quite the anniversary today. We'll play you some audio that puts that into proper perspective coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, tune in Thursday at 8. Browns Live, 75th anniversary special hosted by Dr. Z and Jim Donovan, live from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Celebrates 75 years of Browns football. Head coach Kevin Stefanski, Jarvis Landry, Peter King will stop by of NBC Sports, formerly of Sports Illustrated, Hanford Dixon, and more. That is at 8 o'clock this Thursday night. ClevelandBrowns.com, the Browns mobile app, and YouTube.com/Browns. What can you tell the people? What do we have to look forward to there other than everything I just said?
Well, that's what you got, and we're going to be kind of, letting you know about some exciting events that could potentially be coming up this summer as we return to some normalcy and celebration. But really, this is a celebration not only of the Browns, but of the fans, the greatest fans in the NFL. And so that's kind of that's going to be the theme, and that's going to be kind of a theme that we carry out, and try to execute on this entire season, is making, we miss the fans. And I think, Jim Donovan's iconic line, the only thing that's missing is all of you. Is we're going to try to do our best in this, this whole celebration, the 75th anniversary celebration, to rectify that as things get back to normal. And we look forward to, a potentially and hopefully likely full First Energy Stadium for Browns football in 2021.
Yeah, that's what that last question I had for Terry was about that, about how it's all lining up, and we saw it, even it's interesting. You can tell a lot from kids, because they will tell you, where things are. And I remember telling the story a couple of years ago of Halloween, and there were no kids, dressed as Browns. There were Buckeyes and Steelers and Colts and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Not now.
No, not.
Browns everywhere. Browns everywhere, brother.
Even
so
in
that
March.
was good, and that will continue, even in March. All right, yesterday, this was the 3-year anniversary of the Browns acquiring wide receiver and our guy, Jarvis Landry, the heart and soul of the team. Yesterday, former Dolphins general manager Mike Tannenbaum, who's been on this show several times and made the deal for the Dolphins, was on ESPN West Palm and was asked about what he remembers about that day and what led to the trade. Let's have a listen.
Mike, do you know what you were doing 3 years ago today?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure.
3 years ago today, you traded Jarvis Landry to the Cleveland Browns, a trade that I loved at the time and still am fine with it. What do you remember about that situation? A wide receiver who wanted to get paid, who's very good, you never said he wasn't, but paying wide receivers is always risky. What do you remember looking back at that situation on this day in 2018?
How badly John Dorsey wanted him, and he kept coming into our suite at the Common. I knew he wouldn't leave us alone, so all the teams have suites next to each other, so I knew John was really interested, and I thought, a situation like that is Jarvis Landry's a really good player, and it was just more strategic planning. We just felt like the value of getting a pick and not paying Jarvis was the right decision for us at the time, and I think that was one of those trades where, kind of for everybody.
You're up.
Interesting perspective on that. I think from their end, it's a pretty minimal give back that John Dorsey ended up giving for Jarvis, considering the impact here.
It was a 4 that you acquired in a punter trade, I think, for Andy Lee, and a 7. So, I mean, it's one of those. And he said it at the end. The audio kind of dropped, but he said it was, it's a win for both sides, and that's what they felt at the time. And, for the Browns, obviously one of the best days in recent Browns history, I would say, getting Jarvis Landry here, from what he has meant to this team, not only as a player on the field, but as a leader in the locker room and off the field. You couldn't have asked for anything more. Now, if I'm the Dolphins, when I say, okay, was that good? To me, the idea of having Devontae Parker and Jarvis Landry for my young quarterback Tua would seem pretty good. And Mike Gesicki, who came on very strong for them this year, that seems like that would be, a real nice trio to throw the football to. But guess what? I'm happy that they feel good about it, because I feel great about it. I couldn't be happier to have Jarvis Landry as a Cleveland Brown.
I would agree. I think pretty much like your famous turkey, transformative would be the way to describe that trade. All right, let's take a look back at the big board, your CBD free agency big board. We are on the offensive line now, and Gibby poses you with and tasks you with coming up with 3. Can there even be 1? It seems like a room that is fully loaded, my friend.
So this is what I kind of came up with and looked through. It is right now you feel like your starting line set, right? You left to right, Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin. Your top backup is Chris Hubbard, who, again, could be, he restructured his deal last year to stay with the Browns. He can play any of the positions on the offensive line. A great guy, well-liked, filled in nicely at both tackle and guard at various times this season, is a valuable guy. So you'd think that he would be back. Nick Harris is your backup center. You're getting, Drew Forbes and Colby Gossett back, who are interior guys. You're getting back as well. You brought in Blake Hance. Hi, my name is Blake. Michael Dunn, who was the star of the playoff game. So from an interior standpoint, you're set. The only thing that you're looking for to me is one more tackle. And now Alex Taylor is in-house, a young guy that they like, a former basketball player who's 6'8". Kendall Lamb is a free agent who's, started 27 games in his career, caught that touchdown against Tennessee. Could you bring him back? He knows the system. That would be easy. So I tried to just look at some other swing tackles that would be that people you'd bring in that could be potential, backups, and even have this year's swing tackle could end up being the succession plan as your 6th offensive lineman for Chris Hubbard in the future, because that's a valuable role. So I'll start with Pittsburgh. Matt Filer, 28 years old. The Steelers start at both tackle and guard. He'd be your 6th offensive lineman. I think of the guys that I'm going to list out, he's probably the most expensive, so I'm not sure that we would pay what he would fetch right now unless we decide to make a change at who our 6th offensive line would be, which I don't know that we're inclined to. I think Chris Hubbard's very well liked here. Zach Banner is 27. He's a monster, big size, great run blocker. He won Pittsburgh's right tackle job before a season-ending injury. But he could be a backup tackle and somebody that you put a 1-year deal in and see if what you have there. Jermaine Eluemunor, I don't know if I said that right, and I apologize if I didn't. Eluemunor, he was 26, played 419 snaps, started a bunch of games for the Patriots last year, only allowed 3 sacks, 70 pass blocking grade. Again, these are guys that you go into Pro Football Focus's top 200 free agents. They're in the hundreds, but a potential swing tackle. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a backup in free agency. Ty Neske, who's a 35-year-old swing tackle who's always plays well when called upon. He's been on a lot of good teams. He's just a veteran. If an injury happens, you slide him in, you're safe. You're safe. You're good. And then James Hurst is another one of those guys from New Orleans. Swing tackle has been a better pass blocker than run blocker in his career. So those are just some names of guys that you would bring in here, and you're bringing guys in as backups. That's what we're doing on the offensive line. We are not in search of a starting offensive lineman. That is rare. That's rare headed into the 2021 season.
Yeah, and you feel very good about even who's there now in the backup rooms. I mean, we had look at what Blake Hance did. I mean, we've had guys who stepped up in a big way and played well, and the offensive line transformation that happened in a year is nothing short of astonishing. What happened with this offensive line in the course of a year? You add to that Bill Callahan, and you have a room that was one of the best in the NFL last year, will be one of the best in the NFL this year. Just you wait and think about a whole other year. Just look at Jedrick Wills alone, what he was at the start of camp, and kind of the trepidation of, oh boy, are we really going to throw him out there to do this? And he went from right tackle at Alabama to left tackle in the NFL. And I don't remember a single time, we've said this before on the show, I don't remember a single instance all last season where I went, the moment's too big for Jedrick Wills.
Right.
I don't remember one.
No. And
I don't know what bigger compliment you can give an offensive tackle than that.
Great. He did great. And the coaching from Bill Callahan, Scott Peters, fantastic. Yep. And you feel that's a room that you feel very good about. One of the things on the BPA that we're going to discuss this week is taking the Browns position groups from 10 to 1 in terms of, least need to be addressed and most need to be addressed. And so
what are you doing? What do you think you're doing here?
What do you mean?
You're doing it. Listen, you're doing an unscripted BPA plug now.
Do a little shot for Gibby.
I love where this is going.
It's a one episode.
I love this.
It's a one episode hop in. Like
but you got to make sure that you want the number to nice and pop, and it was just a little tie, and it was a segue. That's all,
folks. Usually when we mention the BPA, it's begrudgingly.
It's with disdain.
It's because it's a read, right? There's a certain amount of mocking, and you just out of nowhere just brought it into conversation. Have you turned to the dark side?
No, I will tell you this, though, that I know many guests who appear on both this show and who get booked for the BPA. I found that they are turning in their best work on this program in Gibby's face.
Confirmed.
I don't know the details of that.
Yes.
But I look forward to it.
I was just going to say his offensive line, we're not worried about it. That's all.
Yeah, you're safe. Nothing to see here, pal. You're safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Going to be fun.
Just
this
so you
whole
know,
thing
though,
starts
that
next
tie-in,
Wednesday.
That tie-in was much more about the fact that we taped the BPA this week on Jeff McDaniel's birthday, and he puts a lot of hard work into that. So that was more of a Jeff McDaniel birthday bump than anything. So don't read too much into that. Don't get too concerned.
Well, anything that man gets is well deserved.
So there you go.
Because that's a champion human right there. Is what that guy is. So that's
Fine
that.
human.
So we look forward to that on the. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good job of you as we continue with the free agency big board. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, very good here. Still so much more to come, including the results of our poll. Gibbe, who did they say you are?
Paulie Walnuts.
Yeah.
51.1%. 28.9% was Sal, and 20% for Bobby.
All right, very good. Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I like the Paulie Walnuts. The loyalty's there, the fierceness, the fight, all of it. I think that makes a lot of sense. How many of our audience knew who Sal Bumpancero actually was? What percentage of those voting are aware of how he's more popular?
That would have won in a landslide had the real name been posted.
Yes, for sure.
Like, by a lot.
Well, this is his real name, to be fair.
It is.
I didn't even remember that was his real name. I only knew him in one way.
Yes.
And it was not that.
Yeah. Right. It's a great show. When's the last time you guys have seen it?
It's been a while, for sure.
It has.
Has Miss Kay seen it?
I don't believe so. I
Gibbe?
don't believe so.
Monica, she's seen it?
Maybe parts of it, but not all of it. I mean, I
I'm gonna
remember
tell
like HBO, like on Sunday nights, where the Sopranos, of Brothers, like that was my must-see TV after college. Like it was like I gotta be somewhere to watch all of this.
Well, that went from they did that, and then they did Deadwood and Rome, which are both shorter but are both spectacular.
Yes.
And then that went to, and then then they had a lull, and then they had Boardwalk Empire, which tried but was pretty convoluted, and then they finally hit on Game of Thrones, and they had it back again. Yeah, that was it. But I would tell you that on a rewatch, you'll be hard pressed to find something more enjoyable than The Sopranos on a rewatch. That it holds up very, very well. Slow in the first season,
but then
you remember. But
1 minute.
Then you're off.
I mean,
to the
season
races.
2 is just a tour de force.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's probably the first couple of episodes of season 1 that are a little dicey, but then it gets going, and it's. My wife loved it. She'd never seen it, and we rewatched it probably right about the time of pandemic, about a year ago.
Yeah.
We checked it out. Yeah, very, very good. Tomorrow, our show will be just from 1 to 2 here on 850 ESPN Cleveland as the Buckeyes play at 2 o'clock in the Big Ten tournament. So you have that to look forward to, which is nice. The next level is coming up next. We're back tomorrow. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.